Alright guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to be talking about factor demand. Specifically we're going to be looking at the demand curve for labor. Alright, so when you look at the model, it's just like the demand curve that we've dealt with so far. It's downward sloping. You might notice that it says D equals VMPL, so it's important to talk about what that means, why this is downward sloping, and then we'll get into three factors that would change the demand, so it would cause it to shift right or left. But remember, at its core, this is just like our regular supply demand model, downward sloping demand curve, so don't be overwhelmed or intimidated by it. It's not that bad. So the first thing is, what is this VMPL? Well, that stands for the value of the marginal product of labor. The value of the marginal product of labor. Now, previous videos have discussed that idea. So if we go back to, first of all, what is the marginal product of labor? So VMPL equals price times the marginal product of labor. So what is the marginal product of labor? Remember, that's the idea that it is the additional productivity or output that's gained by employing one more unit of labor. So if you have 5 workers and you hire a 6th worker, the marginal product of labor is the increase in output that came as a result of hiring that additional worker. So if he produced 4 more units, then that would be your marginal product of labor. The reason we put this V in front is the value, because we need to measure this in dollars and cents to figure out, well, how much value are they adding monetarily. So we don't just look at that he's producing 5 units, we care about what is the price of those 5 units. If the price is $2, we'll do $2 times 5, so the value of that marginal product of labor would be $10. All right, so that's just a brief overview, a reminder of what that VMPL stands for. Okay, now why is this demand curve going to be downward sloping? Again, it turns out this is another concept that we have dealt with and you guys are already familiar with. It is because of diminishing marginal returns. Because as you hire more and more workers, the increase in productivity or the increase in output generated by those additional units is going to decrease. So the initial workers, we're adding a greater amount of marginal product or value of marginal product of labor than further amounts of labor. And remember, that's what your x-axis is here, is the quantity of labor. So as we get more labor, more workers, more hours, the value of the marginal product that they're gaining by the increased amount of labor is going to decrease. So it's actually that simple. This is, again, showing us diminishing marginal returns. Now, there are 3 things that will shift the demand for labor. The first is changing the price of the good. So if the good that we are producing, so if we are producing Skittles, and the demand for Skittles or the price of Skittles goes up, they're going to need more workers to work in the Skittles factory or whatever that is. So the demand curve would shift to the right. So we would have a rightward shift of the demand curve. On the other hand, if the price of the good were to decrease, they wouldn't need as many workers, so we would instead see a leftward shift of our demand curve. 2 other factors would be changes in the supply of other factors production. So more or less capital, more or less land. So the idea is if we have an increase in the supply of the other factors, we're going to have an increase in the demand for labor, because if we have more machinery or more land to use, more natural resources, we're going to need more workers to use that machinery, to use that capital, to use that land. If we lose some of that capital or some of that land, we will see a decrease in the demand for workers because there isn't as much for them to, or need for them. Last was technology. Technically, this can go either way. Sometimes technology can be a substitute for labor. Sometimes it's a complement. Historically, though, increases in technology lead to an increase in the demand for labor, because we have seen that happen since the Industrial Revolution. We've had a vast increase in the amount of capital and technology and machinery, and we have seen a steady increase in the demand for labor has happened over the same period of time. So we are going to say that usually technology will lead to increase in technology, lead to an increase in demand. Having technology destroyed or worsening would lead to a decrease in the demand for labor. That's all until next time. This has been a Money Production.